I wake up at the same time every day, a strict routine that I have followed since a hospital stay. But it wasn't always like this. I was a routineless wasteman, floating through life with no purpose. That was until I was hospitalised with ulcerative colitis, and that's when I became obsessed with routine. So much so that any deviation from this routine would cause me a lot of anxiety. This extreme routine has given me fantastic progress in the gym and in work. But at what cost? I've swung from one extreme to another. So it's time to learn something new. Balance. In this video, I'm going to share with you how my rigid routine became a mental health trap.
It's a trap!
And how balance is the key to long-term success. I started living the way that I do out of fear. Fear of falling back to how I was before my routine. I started doing certain things, going to bed at certain times, so I could be healthy and not end up back in hospital. But you see, following this routine for such a long time has caused me a lot of anxiety, because if anything goes wrong, if anything goes out of my routine, I start to internally panic because I'm no longer following the routine that has worked for me and kept me so healthy. Because the thing is, the routine has worked. It's made me in great shape, it's put me in great health, and it's made my sleep the best that it's ever been. I actually go to bed, wake up at the exact same time every day, and I feel fantastic for it, but there's no wiggle room for anything to go wrong. So I'm always thinking I need to do this by this certain time, I need to be in bed at this time, and I need to be awake at this certain time and have my breakfast at this certain time. The list goes on and on. And so my routine causes me to do the same thing day in, day out with no flexibility. And that's where the anxiety creeps in, because if there is anything, a social event or anything that's pulling me out of that routine, suddenly I am internally panicking and I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. And if I can't sleep tonight, I'm going to wake up feeling awful tomorrow and I won't perform in the gym and I won't get my maximum productivity working. So it's actually a trap.
The fear!
I am feeling like I'm productive and feeling healthy whilst I'm on my routine, but there is just no wiggle room and there's no balance. And where I find it even tougher is when people invite me out to do certain things, they invite me out to certain places, and I think, well, why would I do that? Because I'm not going to be home in time to go to bed on time. I'm not going to be able to perform at my best. I'm going to feel rubbish the next day. A lot of this orientates around sleep, and I'm going to feel terrible come tomorrow if I go out and do this thing at this certain time. So I end up just not doing a lot of things. I spend all my time at home not doing social events. In some ways, this could be seen as a good thing. I'm not going out to these social events, I'm not drinking, I'm not getting the chance to get some sort of illness from other people who don't know that they're sick yet. So it's keeping me in good health and keeping me productive. But at the same time, there needs to be some balance, because a lot of the time I get bored, and if it's not something health and fitness related, then I just don't really want to do it. So while we're talking about rigid routine, let's talk about perfectionism and burnout, because I do feel like it's related. And one of the main examples that I have for perfectionism ruining something that I loved is when I was into skateboarding. I was perfectionist about skateboarding. When I started skateboarding, it was all fun and games. It was a social thing for me to do. I would go out and I'd practice skateboarding and I get to hang out with my friends and we'd all be progressing together. But then at some point, it became a fixation of mine. I needed to learn the kickflip tonight, and I'd stay up late learning the kickflip. I needed to go out and practice my ollie until it was exactly how I wanted it. I needed my tricks to look a certain way. And when I did not land those tricks a certain way, I got very angry. This is the perfectionism creeping its way into what I had a passion for and ruining it, because it was no longer fun. Skateboarding became almost like a punishment for me. I would go out and I'd have a skate, and instead of having fun and doing some tricks and just doing some healthy exercise, it became a burdensome experience. I was now trying to do a kickflip exactly the way that I knew I could potentially perform it at my peak. And if it was nothing like that, I'd start throwing my skateboard around and I'd start getting a headache from pure rage. Because I knew deep down inside I could perform. I could do this kickflip the perfect way that I'm imagining that I can do it. And if I'm not doing it now, then I'm not good enough and I need to do it exactly the way I know I can. And this inevitably led to burnout, and I had to take a step back from skateboarding. And this is why I don't even do skateboarding anymore, because I just saw it as an unhealthy cycle for me. What I could have done was taken a step back and come back to it and not allowed myself to reach that point of anger. Anytime I had any sense of perfectionism come in, I could have taken a step back, stopped skateboarding and come back to it another time. But I decided to just remove it from my life. And that is one example of how perfectionism can completely spoil an experience. And the broader lesson here is that perfectionism can lead to extremes. And these extremes ultimately backfire, causing your mental health to deteriorate. I was so focused on getting the perfect kickflip that it completely ruined my passion and my hobby. And I think this mirrors the way that I conduct my life now. Although it's not in the same way and it's not the same outcome, it's having the same impact on my mental health. Much like trying to land a kickflip and becoming angry because I didn't land it right, if I don't follow my routine to the T and go to sleep slightly later, I become very anxious. And this anxiety has led to obsessive behaviour and isolation. My obsession with meeting my daily routine has taken me away from social interactions and spontaneity when meeting up with other people. With so much time in solitude, I often find myself being quite harsh with myself. If I haven't done all the tasks that I had planned for one day, I consider myself a failure. I often find myself in bouts of misery, feeling like I've achieved nothing in life. And I get stuck this way, ruminating on how I could do things better and making lists of things that I should be doing. And with a laser focus on health and fitness, I often find my only outlet is physical activity, which leads to me finding myself not knowing what to do if I can't go to the gym, which ultimately leads to me going to the gym, which has led me to extreme levels of fatigue, and I'll explain why. You see, a lot of the time I don't see the point in doing much if it's not related to physical activity. So it's either going to the gym, going for a run, or anything active. So I often find that I give up rest days so I can do something, because I often find myself getting bored and the only thing I can think of doing is something physical. And that leads to me getting very fatigued. And when I'm fatigued, I become even more harsh on myself. When I've gone really hard at the gym for an extended period of time, I find myself feeling like a failure in life on those days when I'm not working out. And those are the days when I get stuck not being productive doing work, and I find myself looking at my YouTube analytics and thinking of myself as a failure. And this seems to ebb and flow. Some days I feel like a complete failure that's gone nowhere, and then I feel very productive and I'm working on 3 videos at once. And then the next week I get fatigued and I start to feel like a failure. So that leads me to where I am now, which is trying to learn how to find balance. Finding a balance between recreation, work, physical activity, and progression. And finding a way that I can allow myself the rest that I need and not hate myself for it. And I think it all stems back to my routine. I think for the most part that my routine is actually a very healthy thing for me. It's put me in a great physical state. I get the best sleep that I've ever had. I'm much more productive, but I just need to find some forms of leniency. If I'm able to go to bed 1 hour later than I normally am and I don't feel like it's the end of the world, then that would be a huge amount of progress for me. But other than that, I'm still trying to work this mystery of life out. And the routine has just been one small part of it. And I think that when I look back at this point in years to come, it will be the branch that has led to something great. So how do you live your life? Do you live by a strict, rigid routine and feel the need to add some balance to your life? Or do you live life on a whim and you'd like to add some structure to your life? Let me know by leaving a comment down below.